What is going on, everyone? I am your host, David Haas. Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. Thanks for taking the time to come here and listen to the podcast. I got a very special guest today. It's my good friend, a guy that I consider my mentor, and the reason that my life is where it is today, I believe, is he was able to reveal to me everything that I was missing, created new awarenesses, and I guess, I don't know, I just want to say revealed the truth to me about so many things. And it is because of him that I'm here, I'm doing this podcast, because what he was able to teach to me, as soon as I learned it, I remember when I went on this, going completely off topic, off on a tangent here, but after he showed me in his movie Voyage to Betterment how I could get my health in order, the first thing I said after that is that, and I said, I just want to help other people.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's taken, that was just, for me at the time, it was really, the awareness was around food. But now that awareness has evolved to so much more. It's about spiritual growth. It's about emotional health. It's about my mental state of mind, or my mental state, my level of consciousness. It's so much more now. Mm-hmm. And the same realizations that I had around food during Voyage to Betterment is exactly what I want to teach other people. And that's why, having Andrew as my, coach, I guess, he never had the official title of a coach. He was just a friend and a mentor. But having him as a coach is why I got into coaching, because I just understood the benefits of having someone there that's been there and done that and was able to save me, decades of time, because they just know the fastest route possible. So Andrew, what Andrew and I are going to do today is, well, first I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. But what we're going to do today is we're going to reverse roles. Usually when I'm on Rise Up Rich here, I'm kind of coaching the audience. And now that I have my coach here, I'm going to allow him to coach me, just so everyone can kind of see the process. Sure. Because what Andrew does, and this is what I do in my coaching too, is about focusing on the critical points. And this is something that I learned from Andrew, is like, what are the critical factors that you can pinpoint that are going to have the biggest amount of reward, or to allow you to achieve your maximum potential, right? And that goes back to this old story. And this I'll turn it over to Andrew after this, but this old man, this is a story that Andrew told me. There's a ship that's docked in the marina, and the engines won't start. And they've tried everything. They've had every engineer trying to figure this thing out. And then finally someone says, hey, I know this old mechanic. He might be able to come down and fix the boat. So the old mechanic comes down, and he looks at the engine, and he opens up his toolbox, and he's got one hammer in the toolbox, no other tools. And then he just kind of feels around, and he hits the engine in one spot, and then the engine turns on. And everyone was like just dumbfounded. They were like, what did you do? What did you do? And so he sends him the bill later on, and it's like travel for like $100, and then labor or whatever, and it's like $9,900. So it's a $10,000 bill. And they're like, $10,000 bill? You were just here for 1 second, and you just tapped it. And he's like, yeah, but I knew exactly where to tap it, right? And that's the power of a critical point, is that when you can hit that point, it's like the impact will be the biggest. And that's what Andrew was able to do for me, and it was several points. This is how I was able to become free of my addiction to alcohol, free from my addiction now to popping sugar, how I've learned how to overcome my own illnesses and ailments, how I've been able to be, I would say, spiritually fit, how I was able to achieve the level of success that I'm at today, where for years I was just spinning my wheels. And it was all because of these critical points that I learned from Andrew over the years. So yeah, thanks for being here, and I'm excited to get coached.
Well, yeah, and the punchline there on the story, it was like he sent him the bill, and it was a $10,000 bill. Right. Yeah. And then they were angry. Right. Because it's like, what do you mean? Like, here they're losing $1 million because they can't get their ship out, right? And then the guy was there for 5 minutes and sends them a $10,000 bill, and they're actually pissed off, right? And they're like, can you break down this bill of $10,000 before we pay it? And he says, well, yeah, sure. He's like, time and travel, $100. And knowing where to hit the engine, $9,900.
Yeah, I love that story. Yeah.
And so that is critical point analysis. And most people think of like, it's hard for people to get the concept of time for money out of their minds, because everybody gets paid per hour, let's say. So we tend to, if we're getting paid $30 an hour, we tend to see the value that somebody else has in terms of that, right? So I remember over lunch helping somebody with no money buy a chain restaurant.
Yeah.
And so without that critical guidance, he would not have been able to do it. So how much is that lunch worth?
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that too in my coaching. I sat down with someone once and they were talking about their business, how it's growing rapidly. And I said, well, what are your 2 slowest days? And they said, it's Monday and Tuesday. I said, well, you should just come up with a promotion that's going to draw more business in on Mondays and Tuesdays. And now Mondays and Tuesdays are one of their busier days. And in that one little critical piece of information that I gave them,
they just changed everything.
Well, they went from making, let's say $200 or $300 in sales to doing, $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 in sales. And over the course of a year, $1,000 extra a week is $52,000. So what was my advice worth in that moment?
Right.
Most people are going to say, well, it's $100 an hour or whatever, but really, I could easily charge her $25,000.
So as far as business go, there's a guy called the ultimate coach, Steve Hardison. So I met Steve. He's a great guy, and is sitting in his house with like a group of 20 people or so, and he was shit. And these were all, I wasn't. I just somehow ended up there, but everybody else were big followers of him. And he's like a former CEO, and he coaches all sorts of CEOs. And but his rates start at $200,000 per year, and for that you get to spend 2 hours a week with him for a year.
Right.
Okay, so and you have to travel to Phoenix to go sit with him.
Right.
So he knows what he's worth.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you want the critical point guidance from him, you have to pay.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what it is worth.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
No, I believe it. No.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. So yeah, I mean, if we've got 20 minutes here together, we can get down to some roots of things. So what I do and what Steve Hardison did, one of the things he said there in the kitchen in a group of people, and I resonated completely with what he said, is that for him, it's all about service. He's really connected. He's connected to divinity. He's like Christian, but he's like, like a good Christian, meaning like he just sees it. To me, it just seems like he sees the guidance. So the best mentors ever were like Buddha and Jesus and Krishna. If we follow what Buddha, Krishna, and Jesus said, like, we wouldn't be in fear of this pandemic. I mean, Jesus walked into like lepers and says, "Who wants to heal here?" Yeah. They didn't put masks on them. Yeah. And Jesus, what did Jesus say 365, or what's quoted 365 times in the Bible? Have no fear. So Steve Hardison, he just puts himself in service. That's what he said. He's like, this is the key. So this is the critical point that he's sharing with all the people he coaches. Like, just be of service. Like, it has to come from like genuine service, not from a place of getting. And he can tell the difference because it just feels yucky.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. And that takes like a lot of coaching a lot of times, because this is what the Buddha said, that subconsciously we're coming from a place of fear.
Right.
Because he ventured out and he saw the poor man. Right? So once you see the poor man, you're always going to have like a fear of poverty and getting enough. And I can guarantee you this: you will have everything you need to the day you die. And then after that, you'll have everything you need too. So you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. But we come from a place of fear and security. Think about how much getting we have to do and how much energy we spend trying to get. Right? In North America, we have more stuff than like 95% of the world. Yeah. And yet everybody's caught up in getting. Yeah. I need to get more. And so one of the benefits of being in this pandemic is you realize how little you do need.
Yeah, that's a lot of realization, even for myself, and if my clients have all had, like, oh, if I can survive off this amount of money, it's like,
yeah,
what have I been doing?
So what are you coaching because I don't know, like I'm not following you like as far as what you're doing and stuff, so that I can guide you appropriately. Like when it comes to the people you're coaching, what is it that they're looking for?
It's a variety. I think it's about 50-50 split with people that are just looking to like enrich their lives, like to kind of get to the root of what's really going on, you know, what's really holding them back. Like people that, like I can give examples without giving names, but people that have fear of failure, people that
fear of failure, everybody.
Yeah. But it's really holding them back, you know.
For sure.
It's to the point of paralyzing them, where they're just not doing. Because,
well, of course, yeah.
Right. I have a client that's in a constant state of apathy, and that's been my toughest one.
Right.
Is it trying
so
to get
what are the you're getting to some of the roots of the issues, but what are their goals? Like, why are they coming to you? What is it that they're looking for?
Yeah. So like I say, about 50% of the people just want to experience more joy in their life. They're just not happy. Right. Okay. They're not, and this is usually the women. Is that
right? Women are more connected to that.
You know,
right?
So they're not so driven by, my male clients are driven by the success, right?
And what part of success? That's what I'm getting at.
Well, I mean, the thing that is nice about that I've been noticing is a little bit of a shift, is that it's not so much about the money anymore. It's about following the passion and like and wanting success, but like they're okay if it's not this gigantic success. They just want to be successful and love what they do, and that kind of
so
success.
this is one of the things that happens. Okay, we tend to learn. We think we learn by information. So you'll find, and this is what happens with people when they're ill or they're looking for success or whatever. They start Googling everything, and then we tend to learn like this. And do you remember the story of Jacob Barnett? So Jacob Barnett, he's 12 years old. He's talking to a bunch of math wizards at a university, and Jacob Barnett, when he was 8 years old, disproved the Big Bang Theory because he would connect with the field of mathematics. Yeah. Right.
This is, my last two podcasts have been all about this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So perfect. So we'll just flow on that then. And so what he said to the mathematicians, now these are smart people, is you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And he ended his speech by saying, be the field. So Jacob Barnett gets it and nobody does. So nobody else really does. Very few. 1 in 1,000, I find. And so what does it mean to be the field? It means we think we learn by like memorization and stuff like that. However, we get more by osmosis than we think. So what I've noticed for all the people that have attended all the coaching things that gatherings or stuff that you've been attending to over the years, they are about 1 million times more capable than they think, because they got so much more by osmosis than they thought. So you were just sharing with me right before we started this what you did for yourself for healing, and I said you should share that in your podcast. Yeah, well, I mean, because I've been around you, and I've been a part of a lot of treatments that witnessed to and participated in. But also I do treatments on my own as well. It's part of my coaching. It allows me to get to the root of the issues quickly. But I also do that for myself. So recently, in this pandemic, I don't have people to stretch me, and I don't have my chiropractor that I go to. And I got into this belief system that I needed all these things, which I do believe they're beneficial, and I do believe the body needs adjustments. But it was building, like, if I don't get to the chiropractor soon, I'm not going to be able to move, and these kinds of things. And so my neck and my shoulders were just very tense, and so I just sat. I'm just going to sit and ask for the truth to be revealed. Essentially what the healing process is, and then go through the door. So I sat there and I'm waiting for the message. And the message that came to me was that I'm constantly leaning my neck forward. And I was like, well, what the heck? Because I've been very conscious of that to try and hold my posture properly. But what was revealed to me was that, I'm trying to move forward so quickly, and I'm actually literally subconsciously and actually physically leaning my head forward. And so then I said, well, what's at the root of that? So this is what Andrew always describes as going through the door, right? So I went through the door, and it's like, it was anger at myself
for not being where I felt I was supposed to be in life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
So then I had to sit with the anger, right? And then underneath the anger was a sadness, that that I feel sorry for myself that I'm not where I feel like. So then I just sat with all of that, and then this is everything that I teach and everything that you taught me is just truly fully connect to those feelings and let it go. And as I let it go, like my neck and my back and my shoulders all completely released, and I was healed. Right, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And it doesn't matter how many times I see it.
And right, it's amazing each time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the part about this. It's like you definitely gotta like keep blowing your mind, otherwise you tend to forget, and then you just go back into like even during this Corona pandemic, everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
just stop.
Yeah,
just stop trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you get caught up. It's like sometimes people get terminal illnesses and they die because they're just searching Google for answers. So this is the value that a coach can bring. It's actually we're caught in a world of information overload. So a mentor can actually help you cut through the fluff to get to the critical.
Yeah.
And it can save you years of wasted time and hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. So pick your mentors wisely.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Right. So let's go into like some of the things that you just said, because I was just basically before we started asking for guidance, how can I help you, kind of thing, and just in the things you said, I think we can come up with something that'll be very valuable for you.
Yeah.
Because I could see the challenges that you would face going down the course of action that you're going right now, and one of the things is the limitations of your time. Coaching one person at a time.
Yes.
And you're not going to be able to persuade the masses that your time is worth $10,000 an hour. That's not going to happen, because everyone's frame is they work for $30 an hour, so you might be worth $100 an hour. Right. So you mentioned one of the things that you mentioned was, like some people are coming to see me and they're it's not so much about the money. And I'm like, okay, that's good. So this is already something that is emitting from what you've become. So because you've transcended that in part, not completely, but in part, you bring that with you. So this is, we tend to think, you can go to yoga studios. Everybody's talking about love, 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 love. Yeah, they're all in fear during the Corona pandemic.
Right.
So it's, how do you know you're in fear? Well, if you're wearing a mask, if you're washing your hands more, if any of your behavior has changed, you're in a state of fear probably.
Yeah.
You've bought into it, consciously or subconsciously, right? And then the mind's going to come in. Well, what are you talking about? And all this shit, right? So it's about what we've become, right? And so once you've become something, you bring that energy field with you, okay? And then whoever's learning from you gets it by osmosis. So we benefit from the energy of the group by osmosis. That's the key of 12-step groups. It's a spiritual program. And you show up to any 12-step meetings, it's like you could have had the worst day in the world. You could have committed murder, and they'll even like accept you at a meeting and say, well, nice to see you. It's a field of unconditional love. And when we're in a field of unconditional love, we tend to change. And as long as we keep going to meetings, we're in that field, then we continue to benefit. If we take ourselves away from that field too early, we tend to go back to old ways. Right? So you've probably seen that with our own group meetings and stuff, right?
Yep.
And so one thing I want to share about the need to make money, and that's why I said, trust me, you will have everything you need to the day you die. And, Jesus was a gypsy in that sense, right?
Yeah.
He just knew he'd be taken care of. He didn't need to collect stuff, right? And so he was like the ultimate mentor for healers. And so we tend to come from a place of fear, and that's the same thing Buddha notices. So one of the, and this is the benefit of religions, that they document all this great mentorship for free, okay? So one of the things that is really key to keep in mind in everything we do is the statement, what is not done in my name is done in vain.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend not to know what that really means. So how much time did we spend in group meetings on guidance?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot,
yeah.
Right? How to connect to God and how to listen to God.
Yeah.
And you were able to do that, were you not? Can you give like a couple examples, because it's worth...
Yeah, I mean, this is, I live my life by this. And the more I've done it now, the more I've learned to trust it, right?
Right.
So, but just a few quick ones is, I have these journals that I write in, and I was thinking about writing a book, and I'd written all the chapters of the book. A lot of them that have came to me from guidance, right? And on this one page of the book, and I'd lost that book. And I did what I always do, is I've searched my house high and low, and they're always in this one desk drawer. I tore the drawer apart, and like, it wasn't in there. I tore my business apart, my car. I couldn't find it anywhere. So after 2.5 days, I'm like, I'm just going to go into meditation and ask, right? Which is like, I should have done that in the first place.
Yeah.
But, this is a process. So I sat in the meditation and just waiting. I'm just getting to the present moment where the unknown can be revealed to me, and just sitting there. And the first message was that they were stolen. And I was like, that doesn't, I just observed that thought, let it pass. The next message is that they weren't taken by my own hand. And then I start realizing I'm starting to tune in, because you almost feel it when you start to really tune into it, like the actual real guidance, like divine guidance, if you want to call it. And the last message was they're always in that drawer that I had checked 100 times. So immediately I opened my eyes out of the meditation, and I looked in the drawer, and in an instant, like this is all happening in split seconds, I realized that the drawer was really full, and there was a chance that it could have fell behind the drawer. So I pulled the drawer completely out, and there was my journal laying underneath, and like chills ran over my body when this happened, because I'd spent 2.5 days looking for these journals, and in a 5-minute meditation, it was revealed to me, and I've experienced that multiple times, and I experienced it with my coaching clients too. Like, I have this all the time when my clients and I will be back and forth on something. I'm trying to help them through an issue, and then I'm like, you know what? Forget it. Let's just close our eyes and sit and get. And then in a second, like, it's the truth is revealed. Now, obviously, that's a hard thing to package, because people naturally want to just talk it out, right? Like that's what they want to do. They want to figure it out. Yeah, that's what everyone wants to do, right? Right. And if my coaching was just come in and we're going to meditate together for 5 minutes, they wouldn't see the value in it, So it has to be the whole thing. And there is value, I think, sometimes in talking it out, because I had a lot of my major leaps talking things out. But also,
but let me interrupt you there just for a sec, because this is a coaching session, right? Yes. So let's just reiterate what we know from working in the past. So one of the things that you said when you've seen a lot of the healing treatments, it's like, wow, in 15 minutes, that was like 10 years of psychotherapy.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah. And
so you got that. You understood that. So most people want to pay per hour.
Yes.
$125 per hour for a psychotherapist and are used to going. So what if you could get to the root of it and let it go in 15 minutes? Yeah. So your 15-minute meditation there might be worth $100,000.
Right.
And so would you rather spend $100,000 over 10 years in psychotherapy to get to the root issue, or would you rather connect with God and get rid of it now?
Yeah.
That's what's possible, right? So let's take that a step further then, because that's the true value of what you can offer. So just give one more example, because the example of your wife came to mind when you were like in asking for guidance for the day, because this is the one thing that I try to do coaching everybody, is have this be a daily practice. Like, you wake up in the morning and ask for guidance, because this is critical lesson. Anything that is not done in my name is done in vain. So basically, and it's not the my name as far as a person, meaning that anything that is not in the highest good, at a certain level of consciousness, if this is what we commit to, we will realize that we might waste years of time going down certain paths. Yeah. And it's common. So that's why I do this over and over and over and over, because it's a challenge myself to do this. Right. And I get how much of a challenge it is. And that's why I want people to do it every day. Yeah. So what was the example?
Yeah, so I mean, I've heard from you multiple times that you basically do this every single day, and you just follow whatever it is is presented to you. And I understand the, wasting years of my life. I've done that. I can see now looking back, I'm like, if I would have made changes quicker, I would be a lot further than what I am, right? So one day I said I was going to put this to the test, and I just was going to, my day was kind of open. I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever God wants me to do today. Right. So I sat in meditation, and I said, what is it that you want from me today? And it was the way I meditate is I just connect to the present moment, and I wait for messages to come up. I observe the message and let it pass, and I keep doing that. But eventually you do hit like a root. And so in this meditation was like, go to Kingsville, in which I was helping a buddy open up a gym out there just with some stuff, and I was going to do a workout. But I wasn't planning on going to Friday, and it was Wednesday. And I just couldn't shake that calling, that message, right? And finally, I tried observing it and letting it pass, but it just kept on coming. So I said, fine, I opened up my eyes, I'm going to Kingsville. So I walk out my front door and I go to get in my car. My car's tire's flat, right? I'm like, this message wasn't very good. I can't even get to Kingsville. So it was early in the morning. And I said, I'll take my wife's car. So I drove out there. I did the work I was have to do. And I actually had forgot that I now had asked, when I was driving out there, I was like, I wonder who I'm going to meet. I wonder what's going to happen. But then I just forgot. It was a couple hours in. So I'm driving home, and I'm in the county, and I go to turn onto the road. I'm going like 80 kilometers an hour. I go to turn on the road, and I hit the brakes. There's no brakes in the car. Like literally no brakes. Not slow me down, like nothing. The brake line blew in the car. All the brake fluid spilled out all over. I could see it in my rearview mirror. And luckily I was in the county, because if I wouldn't have been in the county, I would have rear-ended somebody or whatever. So I was able to use the e-brake to get home, and I pulled into the driveway, and I still... I'm not cluing in that this was what I was supposed to do, and this is the reason, until I go into my wife and I say, hey, you're not going to believe this. I drove out to Kingsville with your car, and the brake line blew. I had no brakes. I had to use the e-brake to get home. And she says, I wouldn't even have thought to use the e-brake, right? She didn't even know what the e-brake was. I had to say it was the emergency brake, right? And in that moment, it clicked. I was like, oh, this is what I was supposed to do today, right? This is like, it wasn't in my plan, which is, I think, a big thing. It's like, you have a plan and God has a plan. It's like the quicker you can learn how to listen to God's plan, the quicker you're gonna get the results that is good for you and good for all of mankind, right? So in that day, I did listen to God and probably saved my wife from a car accident and someone else from injury, or her from injury, or whatever. So yeah,
potentially, yeah. But it's powerful. So.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen, especially when we get together in groups, it's like a real beneficial thing, because we tend to like discount that, and then we stop doing that, and then it's easy to not believe. What is God really guiding my life,
right.
And connect with that. And I mean, it's been a challenge for me over the years, and that's why I teach it regularly, because I get the value, and I see that if I'm not aligned with that I could be wasting tons of time. And I've done that. I've written books that nobody's seen, because I felt subsequently, I'm not going to let this out. Yeah. There was something within me that was off, and so I don't want to share it, And so, and I'm grateful that I've got that discretion and that it's building. But you'll see even within the groups of people that you've been part of that over the years and stuff, how we tend to play small a lot.
Yeah.
So we'll sit there in guidance and get very good guidance, and it's clear. And so we'll do group guidance, for example, and out of 10 people, 5 will give like almost the exact same guidance. Yeah. And it's usually things that would bring us a lot of joy that we would be able to do without fear, and then the fear comes in, and then we don't do it, and so we go back to doing other things. So for example, you see how many people were taught how to help others heal, and then don't do it. And so even some in the group went to like selling multi-level marketing stuff, right, that calibrates at like 125 or something. Yeah. And so what happens when you do that is that you start calibrating with those resonating with those lower fields, and then so you spend so much time doing it, right? And you see the lure of it, right? So we don't do what we're being guided to, even though I've seen this over and over again. People are being guided to do things that would bring them a lot of joy, as long as they remain fearless. And I work on that every day, the fear of failure. So And the other thing I work on is eliminating any prior thoughts. So for example, I was like I was just stretching in the backyard the other day, and then I'm thinking about, oh, my hip hurt, like it was literally hurting, right? And then, so the whole story comes in. First of all, if you've got hip pain, the last place to look is in your hip, right?
Yeah.
So, but we tend to say, oh, I got a bad hip or something like that, right? Oh, and x-rays will prove it and stuff, right? So there's like the whole story that comes in, and it puts us in an instantly weak spot, right? So then I was stretching, and I had to say, no, right here at this moment, if there was no fear of failure, what would I do? And I'm like, well, I do an arm stand right now just for fun. Yeah. And so it took me like a few minutes to just get rid of all my preconditioned thoughts and just get in a moment. This is like what the Eastern world called Sartori, or what sports people call being in the zone. Yeah. But it's so rare to be in that zone, you know, where you can just hit 10 3-pointers in a row. It's just so rare, because our thoughts about what we are or something, it's constantly in the past, and then the fears come up. It's so hard to get rid. So it took me a while, a few minutes anyways, to like get rid of the thoughts and just really get in the zone and like be present in that moment without thinking about the future, and just like free of the thought. I'm like, what would you do if you had no fear of failure? I asked myself that multiple times a day. And then I was able to do an arm stand in the grass, and I could never do that stuff as a kid. Right. And so the actual pain in the hip went away. You see, when I was doing that arm stand. Right. So it's really difficult. And so that's why I do that guidance thing over and over, and because you see how easy it is to fall. So this was in the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation. And anything that is not done in my name is done in vain. Right. Okay. So think about that. It's like, and here's the lure. I'll give you this example. So without mentioning the name of this company, pretty much all multi-level marketing companies work in the same way. And it's just based on, like when I was in university, I loved consumer behavior, because at that time I wanted to understand what makes consumers buy things. Right. So if you can understand the psychology, then you could really master business. And I felt I mastered business early on. That's why I gave it up as a pursuit. It was like, first, success goes through making money. So it's all about making money. And that's how you determine success. And you see that most of the world's caught up in that. But then at a certain point, it's not about making money. It's about what you do. Yeah. So, and then you'll hear those conversations, you know, at social parties or whatever. Oh, what do you do? What do you do? Yeah. But ultimately, I've got like a group of friends called my spiritual family in Sedona, where nobody talks about what they do. Right. Yeah. Nobody cares, because success is what we've become as a consequence of life's interactions and battles and stuff. Yeah. Right. So ultimately, that's what it seems like you're guiding people on, kind of. But you can only guide people as far as like we can only teach what we've become. Yes. So like in a yoga studio, the teacher might be talking about love, but if she's filled with fear, that's what's being transmitted. That's what we get by osmosis. So that's what Dr. Hawkins called the silent carrier wave. Okay. You see? So, and you can learn to interpret people's intentions. And there's the energy field. The intentions determine levels of consciousness, you see? Yeah. So as far as just to show how that kind of works, the marketing psychology behind multi-level marketing companies, and just to show you how easy it is to fall for that and not do what we're being guided to. I'm in a room with a whole bunch of functional medicine practitioners. Now, I love functional medicine practitioners, okay? Because they're comprised of, let's say, medical doctors, pharmacists, naturopaths, chiropractors, osteopaths, and one thing that they've all discovered is, and it's usually because of they had to kind of overcome a condition themselves, because they couldn't get help from any. They had to figure it out for themselves and get the help, actually overcome it. And what they've all have in common is that it's not about the 150,000 diseases and going to war against them out there. It's about looking in here. So they all have that in common, and they're all brilliant. So what they ought to be sharing is their knowledge. Right. in their coaching because they're worth their weight in gold. That's what they ought to be sharing.
Yeah.
So I'm at a gathering, and there's like 80 of them in a house. And there's like an alpha male type talking about like all his successes in the natural health movement.
Right.
Right. And the guy's done lots of good and stuff. But then he was trying to sell this multi-level marketing coffee.
Right.
Okay. And so to sell multi-level marketing coffee, there's always like a psychological way of getting people to buy into it. Because one thing that's pretty much in common with all multi-level marketing products is that you're paying probably 10 to 100 times more for the product than it's actually worth, because everybody and their dogs have to get money for that.
Yes.
So you get money from recruiting people and then letting people. So a lot of times it's all the recruits that are doing all the sales. They're buying the stuff themselves or selling it to their friends and what have you.
Right.
And, right. So what you're looking at with this particular company is they sell instant coffee.
Right.
So you can buy, Maxwell House instant coffee, like a big thing of it for like a couple bucks. Okay.
Right.
So you can put instant coffee in a little package and make it seem like it's worth a lot. And this particular company puts medicinal mushrooms in it.
Okay.
So small quantities of medicinal mushrooms, which you can grow yourself, which are not critical. Like you can live without medicinal mushrooms. You'll be fine.
Right.
Right. There may be some benefits, but you can buy them yourself. Chaga mushrooms or reishi mushrooms or whatever, you can put them in your soup or whatever.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to put them in coffee, but
Right.
anyways, if you're a coffee drinker. So it's like, let's drink this healthy coffee, but this is the thing, the psychological thing that's made. It's, why buy a Starbucks coffee for like $2.70 when you can buy our super coffee with mushrooms for $1.35 a pack.
Right.
So now you take the equivalent of 2 cents of instant coffee, put it in a package, and sell it as a healthy coffee for $1.35, and compare. So everybody's like, "Oh, why drink? Let's get the world off Starbucks." See, so the comparison is an apples to apples. So they're not saying, "Hey, you can go out and buy Maxwell House instant coffee for 2 cents, or you could buy ours for $1.35. They wouldn't sell one.
Right. Yeah.
That's like saying, hey, go to a 5-star Michelin restaurant and you're going to spend $200 for a Kobe steak.
Right.
Or you know what? Why don't you just come to the grocery store and you can buy that steak for $20.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like Starbucks is a completely different experience. You're going into a store. It's like the restaurant business,
Yeah.
So you see how the connection's made. So it's deception.
Yeah.
Right? So here's the key. All right. So we're sitting there at a gathering with all these wonderful doctors and stuff. Right. And so here's the sales pitch, right? From this alleged health expert who seems to be like a good guy, but he bought into it too.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just trying to recruit more people.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, hey, we're all here to help people. We all know that, but we might as well get rich doing it.
Right.
There's the lure.
Yeah.
Right. And then we all get sucked into it, and then we get sucked into the glamour of it all. Right.
Yeah.
And so here's there were people that I coached there, and they're all buying into it.
Right.
And so you see how they spend their time like marketing this stuff, and all their time goes into this. Meanwhile, what they can do that is like critically important and critically needed is to share their experiences in life, but you can't because you're caught up in lower fields, you see?
Right.
So this is, anything that is not done in my name is done in vain. Do you see how that works? So we get sucked into that. Right? So now let me cut to the chase for you as far as what I think would be huge for you if you want.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so anyways, based on like when you were saying a few things, like I had like some just visuals come to mind. So I think something that would help you kind of contextualize what you're offering is by putting your own name to it, because it is very unique.
Right.
So, for example, what I feel would be best for you is to do something that is like completely yours, that you're not relying on anybody else with.
Right.
It has to be kind of like 100% yours.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would call it like the Dave Haas method.
Right.
And that's it. And then you could apply that to the different industries you want. So, for example, the Dave Haas method for success, the Dave Haas method for healing, the Dave Haas. So you can see that it would have different approaches. So the Dave Haas method for success, for healing, for discovering. I wouldn't use purpose. See, that's not something that I don't think we have like a purpose. We're born with this purpose. There's a little bit of truth to it, and everybody's like trying to look for their purpose, and they don't do anything until they have their purpose. I don't think that the way it works at all, and that's why I've spoken on intention a lot. What is it that you really want to do? What brings you passion?
Yeah.
What's in the highest good? Sit in meditation until you feel that clarity and guidance from God, and then act on it without fear.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you go in with a blank slate, and I've seen the guidance that you've received lots of times. So the guidance you received over and over again has a lot to do with a lot of the things that you've learned in life, including the things that you learned that were extremely difficult in childhood.
Right.
So what happened then, right, is what you have to ask yourself. Right. And you've talked about your mom lots of times, right? And so a lot of times when we were sitting in guidance, I'm like, what is it that you really want to do? Well, if I had no fear, I would like cure cancer.
Right.
Right. And so you've seen how that happens, and you get the benefit from osmosis. So you have within you already everything that you need to do that.
Right. Yeah.
You're still focused on success because there's still a part of you that kind of wants to prove to yourself that you can be successful.
Yeah. That's huge for me.
Yeah. So
it's almost like I need to check that box.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And to recognize that, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of times when we put ourselves in coaching or healing, it's because there's still something in us that needs to prove it to ourselves. Right? But if you keep asking for guidance, and because the same thing kept getting shared over and over with you, it's hard to believe, that it could be something like that, but it could be. Right. So within our group, we did have that resolution, and a lot of people don't believe it, and they play small. Right. And then you saw how some even went towards multi-level marketing companies. Right. And now once your energies are focused there, how are you going to have any time? If you can, Jesus said, put your hands on them. Believers will place their hands on them and they will heal. And we taught everybody how to do that. Right. Jesus is still 2,000 years ahead of the status quo. Jesus said, had no fear. Right. Today we would want to put a mask on them. Right. So I'd say what you want to do is call it the Dave Haas method. Yeah. And then you can share from that perspective, and then you can adopt the method, which you actually described early on in the podcast, how you went within yourself to resolve your physical issues. Right. You go within yourself to save 10 years of psychotherapy. You go within yourself to get to the roots. What are the roots of toxemia? What are the roots of agony? And then you've got the solution that you were guided to provide. Right. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I kind of feel myself going there. Like, even if you look at my Instagram feed, it's like in the beginning was all like success, and then slowly it's like converting. And the reason it is because I see like people come to me because they want more success, but then it's like, well, this is what you're really looking for help with, right? Yeah. And then we're spending more time with spiritual growth and. Well, what'll happen in due course is that there will be no need to try to lure anybody in with a message, because the tendency is to think, what do people need? What are they going to be interested in? And you want to forget that.
Right.
Instead, you want to be firm in clarity on what you're providing that's not being provided. You want to be creative. This is why I always give that example of that little ball. We tend to look only within the little ball of what we know. I already know how to do this, so I'm going to do this, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, no. Let's learn to get outside of that ball where we get like the support in the universe.
Right.
You see, so we might not know what's coming tomorrow, but we know that we've got the support. But first we want to get clear on that and then set our intention. Yeah, that's what I want to support.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's where we start. The higher the intention, the more support we're going to get from the universe. Right. So that's where we want to start.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
All right, man.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks a lot. And that's the power of coaching, is getting to the critical. So thanks for taking the time to jump on the podcast.
And just to end this, you're awesome. So just, just keep doing what you're doing. A lot of times you have to take steps. And don't think that you're ever taking steps in the wrong direction. It's important to keep moving. And that's one of the lessons you share with people. Because as we keep moving, then we're guided by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. 100%.
And then we have to learn to trust what is coming from the Holy Spirit and what's coming from somebody that just wants to get us to sell coffee.
Yeah. I love it. I'll have to leave it right there.